Oh boy, good morning, everyone. What a wonderful way to wake up and find out that a lot of people who drafted over the weekend, you just lost a most likely a third or a fourth round pick. I don't think many people reached up and took him in the second round, but yeah, not good. Leonard Fournette, running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars, we informed today that he was released. Yes, and as Kellis22 just put, it is Armstead time, although Divine Ozigbo has been the one getting the majority of reps in practice and training camp. So, got to monitor the news. I'd imagine that they would probably sign another running back at some point, but unless it's Devonta Freeman, probably not someone that really matters. So, with that being said, if you're in redraft leagues right now or even in dynasty leagues, and either Raquel Armstead or Divine Ozigbo are on your waivers, you need to pick them up. I think Chris Thompson was probably already rostered, but you need to pick him up as well. And what this means for Leonard Fournette, goodness, I mean, with less than 2 weeks away before the start of the season, hard to really imagine where he would end up going. My fear is he's going to go to a team that already has an established running back and just completely screw over two groups of people. So first you screw over the people that drafted Fournette, and now you're going to go screw over a team that you thought you were getting a bell cow running back. I really hope he does not go to Philadelphia, but that is a possibility. And if that happens, that is going to be a very sad day for me because I'm very much a Miles Sanders truther, and that would be very, very disappointing. I could see him going to Detroit with DeAndre Swift's injury and Kerryon Johnson never being able to stay healthy. That would also suck. That would mean that I would be very much out on DeAndre Swift. Could also see him going to Tampa Bay with Keyshawn Vaughn not doing much. I don't really know if they want to deploy only Ronald Jones, especially since they didn't do it last year when all he had to do was outplay Peyton Barber and he couldn't do that. Bears. The Bears are a name that I could definitely see the Bears go after Leonard Fournette right now with David Montgomery potentially out for a few weeks. So I guess my point is if you have Leonard Fournette, all you can do is hold. There's literally no reason to dump him right now. There's no reason to try to trade him. You're going to get dirt in return, and his stock could at least pick back up probably, at best case scenario, 80% of what you paid for him. Worst case scenario, it's like 10, 20%. But in pretty much no circumstance, unless you have someone that is just not paying attention to news, and which I wouldn't ever do that. Like, just because you get screwed over doesn't mean you should go turn around and screw someone else over. But yeah, there's literally no reason to be trying to dump Fournette right now. Wait it out and see where he goes because, I mean, although he's not really the most efficient runner in the world, and there's a reason the Jaguars are dropping him, a part of that reason is because the Jaguars are tanking, not just because the Jaguars are, disappointed in the way that he's performed for them. A lot of it has to do with they literally are tanking this year. I mean, last year we saw the Dolphins start to do it, but then Brian Flores decided it was more important to try to win games at the end of the year. I think the Jaguars are going full-fledged tank mode, and they're not even like being ambiguous about it. Like they're just doing it. So they had no reason to have Leonard Fournette on their team when they're just trying to see what they have in Armstead and Ozigbo. They weren't going to pay Fournette next year. They weren't going to re-sign him to a contract. So they're like, cut our losses now, see what we have, and see what we need to address next year. So I get why the Jaguars did this, and there's always going to be that segment of people that are going to get in your face and say, this is why you shouldn't draft into the last possible second. But especially this year with the fact that they haven't even done the full roster cuts until this week, like if you drafted before this, unfortunately, that was one of the potential ramifications of doing that, which, I mean, it could happen regardless. Players get injured or cut as soon as the season starts. So there's always going to be an element of that in fantasy football. But it does suck for those of you that drafted literally yesterday or Saturday or Friday night, and then this news comes out because At this point, there had just been speculation. You got people like Adam Levitan and Evan Silva joking about them cutting him, and I was like, there's some possibility of that, but I didn't think it was going to actually happen. And for those of you that have been listening to me, I've been out on Leonard Fournette for the past 3 months, so hopefully you didn't draft him. But if you did, again, you got to pick up Armstead, you got to pick up Ozigbo, you got to pick up Thompson. Hopefully you have enough roster spots to take a couple of them, because one of them is going to be valuable. I know Armstead is probably going to be the guy, but Ozigbo has been getting more of the carries in camp, so I could see it going either way there. And, Chris Thompson is probably going to end up being more valuable in PPR now, so he probably turns into like a later round sleeper. But if you guys haven't drafted yet, I need to piece together my projections and see where I think that it's going to land. Like, none of these guys are going to be people you'd be drafting anywhere like inside of the 7th or 8th round. This is really just like another Matt Breida, Jordan Howard situation where no one's really sure what's going to happen once the season starts. Like, again, the Jaguars are literally just going to be messing around trying to figure out. So this could be one of those. They give Ozigbo carries for 4 games, and then it turns into a Raquel Armstead season later on. Kind of like we saw with the Dolphins last year, where they were just experimenting the whole season. So it could just be a very ugly situation no matter what. So I would not blow my budget to try to pick up Armstead or Ozigbo. If you can get him for cheap, I'd do it just for speculation. But it's going to be very interesting. But obviously the bigger shoe to fall, and we'll let you guys know when it actually happens, is where does Fournette go from here? Because this is now like a massive landmine in the free agency pool that could potentially really screw over another backfield, which, I mean, it happens, right? Like, this is fantasy football. Sometimes those things happen in the middle of the year and just completely change everything. But, I mean, yeah, so recap this again. Run it back for those of you that are just joining in now. If you have Fournette, I'm sorry. This was always a potential possibility, especially with roster cuts coming so late this year, and with the way that, I mean, the Jaguars, there were rumors that they were trying to trade him in the middle of the draft, and they weren't even able to get like a 6th or 7th round pick for him. So it was pretty obvious that they didn't want him in their long-term future. But there was only speculation up to this point that they were actually planning on potentially cutting him. So at this point, if you have Fournette, there's literally no use in cutting him or trying to trade him because his value is at the absolute bottom right now, and it can only really go up. So wait it out. If I own Fournette right now, I'm hoping that the Bears sign him. I don't believe in David Montgomery. I think Leonard Fournette is a better running back than David Montgomery with that groin issue. I think that Leonard Fournette could actually take this job and run with it. That would pretty much be the most ideal situation. You don't want him going to the Eagles. You don't want him going to the Seahawks. You don't want him going to the Buccaneers. Lions, maybe. That would just be a messy situation. I don't think you'd want that, but that's a potential. Trying to think if there's any other teams that could potentially go after him. The Jets, probably. The Dolphins, maybe. The Dolphins might go after Leonard Fournette. If they're able to get him for a low enough value. I'm not sure how confident they are going into the season with Jordan Howard and Matt Breida. That might give them a little bit extra of a boost. So, I mean, there are some teams that if Leonard Fournette goes there, he ends up retaining, 70, 80% of the value of what you paid for him on the draft weekend. So, again, if you have Leonard Fournette, don't panic, don't freak out, and drop him. Just wait it out. We still have almost 2 weeks before the season starts. And worst case scenario, he doesn't sign anywhere, and you can cut him once week one is over. But I wouldn't cut him just yet, and I definitely wouldn't try to trade him because no one's going to give you anything for him. And then in terms of the running backs on this team, I would, if you have Armstead or Ozigbo, hang on to him and see. I'm not even sure who would end up getting the majority of the touches at this point. Like I said a few times already, Ozigbo has gotten the majority of touches in camp, so they might end up trying him out first. But Armstead would be the guy you would think that it fits more into that 3-down back, archetype of body type. And then Chris Thompson obviously is going to be pretty heavily involved. Laviska Shenault probably going to get some carries as well. Sorry, Tommy Wong. I can see you're freaking out. Yeah, this sucks. Whenever moves like this happen after people's drafts, it's never fun. And it's what makes fantasy football so random. But again, just hold on. If you have Leonard Fournette, there's likely another team that's going to sign him. Plenty of injuries around the league. We just saw Justin Jackson go down yesterday in Los Angeles, so there's potential opportunity there. Darrell Henderson dealing with an injury in Los Angeles with the Rams. So, I mean, there's a lot of injuries already happening at the running back position that it's possible that he ends up finding himself into a decent situation, but most likely he's going to go somewhere and make an annoying committee that is not going to be very fun for anyone in fantasy. So, yeah, this is why I was avoiding running backs like Leonard Fournette in the third. This is the worst case scenario. I don't see Todd Gurley or James Conner or Chris Carson going to be cut in the middle of the year like this. But, I mean, it's very possible that he goes to one of those teams that and he ends up being in a committee with, like, I could see the Seahawks signing Fournette. I could see the Falcons signing Fournette. Like, wherever he goes, it's just going to make the fantasy situation annoying until it sorts itself out a little bit. So, yeah, and if you haven't drafted yet, take notice of this and just recognize there's a reason there's such a premium on the running backs that are going in the first and second rounds. Like, those people have locked in and secured situations, with the exception of maybe Miles Sanders now with the injury. I am worried that Leonard Fournette will go to the Eagles, and if that happens, that's going to just drive a knife deep into my heart, because I think Miles Sanders is in for an absolutely killer year if he is the lead back there in Philadelphia. So that is the worst possible scenario right now. But we'll wait and reserve any judgment until this actually happens and we see where he goes. But yeah, this is why, if you have the ability to draft 2 running backs in the first 2 rounds, if you haven't done your draft yet, pay attention to this kind of stuff, because, again, the 3rd round and 4th round, like, the receivers there are much better value. And, anyone that drafted Fournette, unfortunately, now is figuring that out. But we'll be able to get through it. I've had drafts where last year is the best example. I drafted Juju and James Conner in the first 2 rounds, and I still managed to win a title. So hang tight for a second. Try to get Ozigbo and Armstead if you can. I'm guessing Chris Thompson's already rostered, but if you have a deep bench and you can roster all 3, I wouldn't stop you from doing it. If I had to make a bet, I'd probably say Armstead, even though Zigbo's getting a lot of touches right now. I think Armstead was dealing with an injury. I feel like Armstead is more tied to this organization. Ozigbo is just someone that they grabbed from New Orleans last year. So Armstead could have a pretty decent week 1. Now, playing the Colts, good linebacker core there, might not be a best week 1 play, but Armstead will probably end up getting the majority of carries, and Chris Thompson will probably end up having the most PPR value being used in the passing game. So if you have Chris Thompson, this is probably good news for you. Everyone else is probably bad news. So, but yeah, again, one more time, if you have Fournette, don't drop him. Wait it out, see where he goes. Chris Thompson, do a little dance, and make sure you go pick up Armstead or Ozigbo. But I would probably, if I had to pick one or the other, I would go with Armstead. But do not blow your salary cap for him. Let someone else waste their salary cap before the season starts if you're playing in a free agent acquisition budget league. No reason to spend $200 on a guy like Raquel Armstead. Someone else does that, just laugh, because it's probably going to be a pretty ugly situation all year, and there's still a chance that the Jaguars sign someone else before the season starts. Probably not, but it's possible that they bring in Devonta Freeman. So we'll see. But that's pretty much all I have to say on this. Comment below questions. I'll respond later. It's pretty early here, but yeah, wonderful thing to wake up to on a Monday morning. Hope you guys have a much better week. Hopefully this isn't a sign of the things to come, but we'll keep you updated. All right, you guys have a good one.